It's becoming apparent that Nebraska's defense has heard the criticism and taken it personally. The Huskers controlled the game versus Rutgers nearly the entire way through, but had it not been for their defense, it could have gotten ugly. This game was confusing for me as far as how I should feel about the outcome. Of course, happy to get any win, especially in the Big Ten these days. But Gary, should I be optimistic about how great Nebraska's defense is playing right now going forward? Or should I be worried that we just can't seem to put points on the board? Plain and simple. Not for two halves.
It just depends on your perspective, where you're coming from. If your perspective is, I have in my mind that we should beat this team by X amount of points, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed. If you're looking at it from a rebuild standpoint and where we're at in the stages of the rebuild, on the way to where everybody wants to be, there's every reason to be optimistic. You and I were talking before this. If this was 2, 3, 4 years ago, we'd do anything to be 5-1 at the break. Like we didn't have seasons that we had 5 wins. So I think it's really just don't get too high and don't get too low on the way to where everybody wants to be, including the coaching staff, the players, obviously us as fans. But as far as what you're seeing on the field, you're seeing a lot more parity in college football, obviously, with the NIL and things like that. But you're also seeing how important matchups are. Like I always try to emphasize that as one thing that I firmly believe. There's a lot of stuff I say, and I'm like, it's just my opinion. Or I don't know, what do you think, or whatever. It's so much of how teams look from week to week isn't just this team has this record and this team has this record, so this team should demolish this team, or whatever other parameter you want to use. When you sit and watch game film and you see what a team does really well and what they don't do well compared to what another team they're playing does and doesn't do well, how are those things going to line up? And then are they going to stick with that? Are they going to go, we don't do this well and they do well against this, so we're going to change things up so that what they're game planning for all week doesn't work out in their favor, and vice versa? You got a lot of chess matches going on from position to position, coordinator to coordinator, head coach to head coach. And it's just, I think you're seeing that in real time, that yes, every Nebraska fan is going to say, we've got the better quarterback, we have the better defense, we have better receivers, we'll give them the running back, but we have a stable of backs and we can do these things. And that's great. But when they scheme to not let you get outside on runs, I think it's an issue that Nebraska is going to need to adjust in this off week, is that I think teams are really starting to get more of an idea of how you can alter Raiola's gameplay by getting pressure on him. He's clearly not the same quarterback when he has to start rolling out and looking to throw on the run. And that's not to say he can't do it. It's just he goes from being a phenomenal quarterback when he has time to sit in the pocket and pick people apart and put finesse touch passes into spots that most quarterbacks can't do, to running, worrying about how close the pressure is, waiting for guys to get open, and then try to get the ball out before the pressure closes down on him. So I think that's something that isn't going to change week to week, that they're just going to have to be able to prepare for and have an answer for.
He's certainly not as good at evading the rush as we were hoping or thought he was going to be.
Yeah, not yet, at least. Again, there's what he was doing the first few weeks of the season as a true freshman. Everybody was impressed with it. And then I felt like all of a sudden it's being taken for granted. So he's not a 100% finished product that's ready to go to the NFL right now, but he shouldn't be. Most true freshman quarterbacks are getting redshirted or playing and starting in games out of necessity due to injury or whatever else. Like, he came in, won the job out, and then looked every bit of what the hype was and exceeded it in a lot of areas to start the season. But again, that doesn't translate to, this is his floor. He'll never play worse than this game I just saw him play. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to play better teams. We talked about that when we were kind of walking through teams and being able to sleepwalk through the second half of games, and it didn't make a difference as far as if the game was ever in jeopardy. Is like, okay, but this isn't the Big Ten. This isn't Big Ten coaching staffs and head coaches and talent, So I think it's kind of a rough wake-up call for a lot of fans, but it's also, for me, it's more of like a positive reinforcement, so to speak, that the rebuild is going very well. That's the type of game Nebraska finds a way to lose in years past. We've complained that the defense doesn't have great games when the offense is doing its thing. And to see the defense basically win a game for the offense when the offense is having an off day, be it scheme on the other side, lack of effort, lack of creative play calling, whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter, man. When you have complementary football within your own system, you're going to have times where both are clicking, and you're probably beat the shit out of a team that people don't think you're going to win, or you barely win. And then unfortunately, you'll probably have a game that you drop to a team that you should win. Maybe you already had that with Illinois, but it's kind of that, like the old Aaron Rodgers thing, like relax. It's a long season. I don't think anybody in their right mind thought we were winning a national championship this year, or even getting to a college playoff. So the schedule is going to be a lot tougher for sure moving forward. But now you have plenty of games and experience with a lot of these young guys, but things to go back and look at. Okay, when this team did this, we struggled here. When this team did this, we struggled here, and then we succeeded in this. And then you learn what you're going to work on. You've got all this extra practice before you have to really start buckling down to get ready for Indiana. You got a little more time to focus and look into them. You're going to have another top 25 team when you play them, unless they happen to drop one. But there's the whole thing that goes with rules. He doesn't beat top 25 teams and blah blah blah. But it's just the perspective, I think, for Husker fans needs to start adjusting to very recent history to where you're at now is a huge jump. So don't be greedy and don't be over the top with like, well, I want it to be, we're going to beat Ohio State. We all do. It's just going to take a little time to get to that point. You know what I mean? I don't think you can hold them to that standard. That being said, Purdue and Rutgers aren't on that level. But again, those are games you're supposed to win that in the past we found a way to lose. And the last 2 weeks, they found a way to win it. One looked better than the other because of a explosive fourth quarter. But it's pretty obvious. I mean, whether you like the final result or not, or the window dressing, I guess you could say, you can't argue with the final results. 5-1 with 6 games to go and a week to recover guys, work on some things, and really game plan for your next top 25 opponent if they stay that way, I think is a very, very good spot to be in.
So 2 things. I cannot agree with you more that people should remember where we were in the beginning of this season. Being 5-1 was very realistic, but it's also an incredible place to be because we are already 1 game away from getting a bowl game, and I definitely see at least 1 more win on this schedule. The other thing is this bye week is coming at a really opportune time for the Huskers to get healthy and get prepared for another big game, Indiana. That game will likely be the one that, if Nebraska can win, puts them back in the top 25. I know that's not important to everyone. I'm embarrassed to admit it's important to me. But tell us what you think about this win versus Rutgers. Was it enough? Were you happy with the way it all went down? Or do you have concerns?